Hello and welcome to Adolescents Power. This week's topic is Adolescents Substance Abuse, hosted by Kyrie Harris. Today we will examine the statistics regarding adolescent drug use, risks for drug use, and effective treatment for adolescent populations. I should note that this show is designed for counselors and therapists entering the counseling field that are looking for additional information regarding adolescence. Thank you and enjoy the show. The Drug Abuse Warning Network, also known as DAWN, reported that in 2010, 45% of emergency department visits involved drug misuse among 20-year-olds and younger. It's interesting to note that less than a third of these visits involved just alcohol, while a third of the visits involved marijuana. It's also important to note that between the years of 2004 and 2010, misuse or abuse of pharmaceuticals increased by 45%. The Archives of General Psychiatry reported in 2011 that approximately 60% of teens surveyed reported an opportunity to use illicit drugs. You should note that illicit drugs include marijuana, cocaine, tranquilizers, stimulants, and painkillers. Dawn, in its 2010 report, also shared or highlighted the highest usage among adolescents included marijuana and then alcohol. We often think that alcohol is the most prevalent substance that adolescents use, and this chart shows differently. This chart, taken from the Archives of General Psychiatry from 2011, reminds us that drugs are the dominant substance being used among adolescents. And this chart breaks down the actual substances that adolescents use most frequently, with heroin being the top and marijuana following closely behind. And you can see the others that are highlighted as well, which also include sedatives, cocaine, and hallucinogens. When we stop and look at what the usage really is among adolescents, first of all, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration reported that youth between 12 and 17 are more likely to begin using during the summer. On an average day in June and July, these teens show that 11,000, or really more than 11,000, use alcohol, and more than 4,500 use marijuana for the very first time. The question that begs to be asked is why? And of course we know that during the summer there's more free time, they have less adult supervision, and that can make the summertime an exciting time for many young people, which increases the likelihood of exposure to the dangers of substance abuse. And that's coming from, again, from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Research shows that adolescents have a higher rate of binge and opportunistic use, and we actually saw that just a few moments ago with the usage reported in the summer months. Adolescents also are more difficult to recognize when they have a problem. It usually has to be pointed out by someone that they love or care about. They also have a higher rate of comorbid psychiatric problems, meaning that they have co-occurring disorders. And then, due to developmental changes, they're more vulnerable. And so as they are trying to establish their own identity, as they're kind of breaking away from that dependence on family, and then they are also more highly focused on immediate concerns. But all of those lead to more risks associated with drug use. The risk factors reported here are taken from the National Institute on Drug Abuse in their preventative brochure. Risk factors can influence drug abuse in several ways. The more risks a child is exposed to, the more likely the child will abuse drugs. Some risk factors may be more powerful than others at certain stages in development, such as peer pressure during the teenage years, just as some protective factors, such as a strong parent-child bond, can have a greater impact on reducing risks during the early years. An important goal of prevention is to change the balance between risk and protective factors so that protective factors outweigh risk factors. Let's examine some of the family risks. So the family risks that you see here all increase the likelihood of drug abuse. It's important to note that the top 3 involve the parenting relationship. So for instance, a lack of nurturing parents or caregivers, ineffective parenting, and there's a lot of research regarding which parenting styles contribute more to drug abuse, as well as a significant relationship or a lack of a significant relationship with a caring adult can increase drug abuse among adolescents. Also within the family, a chaotic home environment, and then the modeling aspect of a caregiver or parent who abuses substances, suffers from mental illness, or engages in criminal activity all contribute to the increase in drug abuse among adolescents. When we examine the risk outside the home, there are several difficulties or issues that impact the likelihood of drug abuse or use. One would include inappropriate class behavior, academic failure, as well as poor social coping skills. Then when we start to look at the peers that adolescents hang out with, if they exhibit problem behaviors, they also can contribute to the likelihood of drug abuse. And then the misperception, depending on how that adolescent views drug abuse and where it's acceptable, that can also play a role in their use of drug abuse. Let's explore the issues to consider when exploring treatment options. And these are some of the things that you'll want to share with parents as you're working with them regarding what their treatment options are for their adolescents. Despite evidence that adolescent substance abuse can be treated successfully, premature dropout and lack of sustained participation in treatment remain major challenges in adolescents' treatment. Therefore, when you're recommending treatment, be sure to alert parents of the barriers. The top 3 barriers include treatment population, which is simply the demographics of the other adolescents that are being treated at the facility. The program elements include things such as transportation obstacles, as well as following the rules of the facility. And then communication and relationship factors entail both the perception of the counselors and a commitment to the client, as well as the communication between the parents and the agency. To overcome these barriers, there are researched events that can be enforced. The top 3 facilitators include positive relationship between the client and staff, parent involvement, which is really essential in every aspect of treatment, and then strong communication with the staff, and that's especially from the parental aspect. Okay, guys, I gotta do it again. I'm sorry. When considering the treatment facilities for adolescents, there are 9 effective characteristics that should be considered in that decision. Those 9 characteristics are listed here. I'm just going to highlight a few. Most importantly is to look at the assessment as well as the treatment and ensure that it's comprehensive. One of the most essential aspects of treatment for adolescents is the family involvement, and the research strongly supports that. Also, you want to consider the developmental aspects of the adolescent and ensure that gender issues are considered, as well as the cultural differences of the adolescent. Also, the relationship. Family-based treatment is the most thoroughly studied behavioral treatment modalities for adolescents, and that is what's considered the most effective treatment for adolescents. It underscores the importance of involving caregivers and their family members in the treatment. And then core FBT, as family-based treatment is called, interventions promote positive outcomes in both adolescent and family functioning. There are 3 well-established adolescent treatments. Those include MDF, which is multi-dimensional family therapy, functional family therapy, and then cognitive behavioral therapy. With the multidimensional family therapy, the research shows that it does improve family cohesion and behavior problems, so that's really important. It's also, the research has shown that it's also effective with minority populations. FFT is also very effective based on the research, and some of the strategies that are most effective there are the communication, the problem solving, and other just behavioral type intervention strategies, which are often implemented with this particular type of treatment. Then with cognitive behavioral therapy, the strategies that are provided help to avoid high-risk drug use, and that's going to be essential, especially when you look at the relapse prevention. So very important there. Family-based therapy has proven empirical evidence in helping many adolescents. Notice that you can see it reduces behavior problems with substance abuse. It also helps to achieve significant improvements at follow-up sessions and school performance for students. And the social support is really just that family connection there that has been promoted throughout this presentation. Teen who was admitted to a facility, a treatment facility. He was the second place winner in the 2011 Music Cares and Grammy Foundation's Teen Substance Abuse Awareness Through Music contest. In his lyrics, Kevin told his story of addiction and recovery, and his song is titled My Life. You can go to the link that you see here if you'd like more information about the music contest, as they've had one for the last few years. But it's also important to just note from Kevin's lyrics that he mentioned, my life was over until I got sober, but I found another way to get through life. In a video essay, Kevin added that whenever I have a bad day, I go to my room with a pencil and paper and write down how I feel. So again, just showing how some of those statistics or some of the research that we shared earlier really does come into play with these students and how they can overcome the addiction. Listen for a moment to Kevin's song. Just a portion of his lyrics are written here to understand the gravity of what Kevin endured.
Here we go, blast off, here's the story of my addiction. I was never a kid to really take the time to listen. So when I was told to stay away from that crowd, I did the total opposite, and look at me now, 5th grade. I started hanging with the crew, parties every weekend and my mama never knew. Still in a cash so I could purchase a bottle. I was headed down a dark path to smashing the throttle. I was getting in fights, I was learning the game. Breaking the law was now an everyday thing. Residential bird selling weed by the OZs, beating fools.
Hopefully you've gained some interesting insights into substance abuse with adolescents. Here you see some resources to obtain additional information and where we were able to obtain some of the information that was presented here. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day. Goodbye.